For the past week, something strange has been happening in my apartment. Every night before bed, I turn all the lights off. Kitchen, bathroom, hallway, living room, everything. But every morning when I wake up, one of them is on again. At first, I thought I was just forgetting. So one night, I took a picture of the hallway before going to sleep, just to prove the lights were off. The next morning, the living room light was on again, and when I checked the photo, I noticed something in the mirror. Someone standing in my hallway, behind me, inside my apartment. I live alone in a small apartment. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom place on the third floor of an older building. The kind of building where the walls are a little thin, and the floors creak if you step in the wrong place. Most nights are extremely quiet. The loudest thing you usually hear is the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, or someone walking down the hallway outside the apartment. For the first few months, everything about living there felt completely normal. No strange noises, no weird neighbors, nothing that made me uncomfortable. Then one morning, something small happened, something that at first didn't seem important at all. I woke up, walked into the kitchen, and noticed the kitchen light was on. At first, I didn't think about it. I just assumed I had forgotten to turn it off the night before. That happens sometimes. You walk into the kitchen half asleep, grab a glass of water, and forget to hit the switch on your way back to bed. So I turned the light off, made coffee, and went about my day. The next morning, the same thing happened again, but this time, it was the bathroom light. When I walked past the bathroom, the light was already on, bright, like someone had just flipped the switch. That made me pause for a second, because I clearly remembered turning it off the night before. I stood there in the hallway, trying to remember. Maybe I had gotten up during the night. Maybe I had turned it on half asleep, and just didn't remember doing it. That explanation felt possible. So again, I ignored it. But the next morning, it happened again. This time, the hallway light was on. That one bothered me more, because I almost never used that switch. The hallway usually had enough light from the living room, so there was no reason for me to turn it on. Now it started to feel strange. 3 mornings in a row, 3 different lights, all turned on while I was sleeping. So that night, before going to bed, I decided to check everything carefully. I walked through the entire apartment, room by room. Kitchen light, off. Bathroom light, off. Living room light, off. Hallway light, off. Bedroom light, off. I even stood there for a moment, looking at the switches, just to make sure. Then I locked the door, checked the windows, and went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, the living room light was on. I remember just standing there in the doorway, looking at it, trying to process what I was seeing, because now I knew something wasn't right. I had checked every switch before going to sleep. I knew they were off, but somehow, during the night, one of them had been turned on again. For the rest of that day, I tried to come up with logical explanations. Maybe the wiring in the apartment was old. Maybe there was some electrical issue. Maybe the switches were faulty. But none of those explanations really made sense. Light switches don't normally flip themselves. Still, I tried to convince myself it had to be something simple, because the other possibility was something I didn't want to think about. That someone else was inside the apartment. So the next night, I decided to test something. Before going to bed, I turned every light off again, just like before. Then I took out my phone and opened the camera. I stood in the middle of the living room and took a photo of the hallway. The hallway connects almost every room in the apartment. So in the photo, you could clearly see the kitchen entrance, the bathroom door, and the light switches on the wall. All of them turned off, I saved the photo, put my phone on the nightstand, and went to sleep. The next morning, the first thing I noticed was the living room light. It was on again. My stomach tightened when I saw it, because now I had proof. I grabbed my phone, opened the photo, and zoomed in. The light switches in the picture were exactly how I remembered, all of them off. But when I looked closer at the hallway, something in the background made my chest go cold, because in the reflection of the hallway mirror behind me in the apartment, when I took that photo, there was someone standing there, perfectly still, watching me from the hallway inside my own apartment. For a few seconds, I just stared at my phone, zooming in on the photo again and again, trying to convince myself I was seeing it wrong. But the reflection didn't change. In the hallway mirror behind me, there was definitely someone standing there, a tall shape, thin, standing perfectly still, watching me. The photo timestamp said it had been taken just before I went to bed, which meant something I didn't want to believe. When I took that picture, someone had already been inside my apartment, standing in the hallway, only a few feet behind me. I slowly looked up from my phone, toward the hallway outside my bedroom. The hallway light was on, bright, just like when I woke up, but the hallway itself was empty. No movement, no sound, nothing. I got out of bed slowly, my eyes fixed on the hallway, listening carefully. The apartment felt different now. The quiet didn't feel normal anymore. It felt heavy, like the air itself was waiting for something. I walked into the hallway, every step slow, trying not to make noise. The mirror from the photo was still there, mounted on the wall, reflecting the kitchen behind me. I looked directly into it, half expecting to see someone standing behind me again. But the reflection showed nothing, just me and the empty apartment. I checked every room. Kitchen, empty. Bathroom, empty. Living room, empty. Closets, under the bed, behind the curtains. Nothing. That should have made me feel better. But it didn't, because the person in the photo was still there, standing in that reflection, inside my apartment. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch in the living room, with every light turned on, watching the hallway. The minutes moved slowly. The apartment completely silent. Around 2:45 a.m., I started wondering if maybe I had imagined the whole thing. Maybe the reflection had just looked strange. Maybe my brain had filled in the shape of a person. Then I heard something, a soft sound, from the hallway. Click, the sound of a light switch. I froze immediately, looking toward the hallway. The hallway light turned off. The apartment suddenly became darker. Only the kitchen light still glowing behind me. My heart started pounding, because I hadn't moved, and I hadn't touched the switch. A few seconds passed. The hallway stayed dark. Then the sound came again. Click. The hallway light turned back on. I slowly stood up from the couch, walking toward the hallway, trying to stay quiet. The hallway was empty, exactly like before. No one there, no movement, but the air felt colder, heavier, like I wasn't alone anymore. Then I heard another sound. From behind me, click, the kitchen light turned off. I spun around, but the kitchen was empty. Now the apartment was darker again. Only the hallway light glowing in front of me. Another click. The bathroom light turned on. I could see it spilling light through the doorway. Then another click. The bathroom light turned off again. One by one, the lights in my apartment were turning on, then off, like someone was walking through the rooms, flipping the switches, slowly, methodically. And the worst part was the timing, because each time I moved toward a room, the next light would switch somewhere else, like whoever was doing it was staying just out of sight, moving through the apartment while I followed the lights. Then everything stopped. The entire apartment went quiet again. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the last sound came from the hallway, right in front of me. Click. The hallway light turned off, and in the darkness, just before my eyes adjusted, I heard something right behind me, a quiet voice, almost a whisper. You noticed